For 249 days he had vanished. Thousands of soldiers searched for him. Hundreds of raids ended in failure. Millions of dollars were spent. Yet the world's most wanted man remained invisible. Military commanders began asking an uncomfortable question. What if Saddam Hussein had escaped Iraq? Then, on a cold December night in 2003, everything changed. A group of American Special Operations soldiers searched what appeared to be an ordinary farmhouse near the town of Ad-Dawr. The buildings were almost empty. The mission seemed like another dead end. As the soldiers prepared to leave, one of them noticed something unusual, a small patch of disturbed earth. At first glance, it looked insignificant, but as he brushed away the loose dirt, a hidden metal cover slowly appeared beneath the surface. No one knew it yet, but beneath that hatch was the man who had ruled Iraq for more than 2 decades. This is the story of Operation Red Dawn. To understand how the world's most wanted dictator ended up hiding beneath the ground, we have to go back to March 20, 2003. After months of rising tensions, the United States and its coalition partners launched Operation Iraqi Freedom. The objective was clear: remove Saddam Hussein's government and dismantle the regime that had controlled Iraq for decades. Coalition forces advanced with remarkable speed. Massive armored columns crossed the Iraqi desert while helicopters filled the skies above. Within days, Iraqi defensive positions began collapsing. Some military units surrendered. Others abandoned their posts before coalition forces even arrived. The advance toward Baghdad happened far more quickly than many military planners had expected. Less than 3 weeks after the invasion began, coalition troops entered Iraq's capital. On April 9, 2003, television cameras from around the world broadcast dramatic images of Saddam Hussein's statue being pulled down in Baghdad. To millions watching around the globe, it looked like the war was over. But inside military headquarters, commanders knew something was missing. The government's leader had disappeared. Saddam Hussein was gone. No one knew where he had gone. No one knew who was protecting him. And no one knew how long he could remain hidden. Within hours of Baghdad's fall, one of the largest manhunts in modern military history officially began. Capturing Saddam Hussein immediately became one of the coalition's highest priorities. Military leaders believed that as long as he remained free, he could continue inspiring resistance across Iraq. A reward of $25 million was offered for information leading directly to his capture. Across the country, thousands of tips poured into intelligence offices. Phones rang constantly. Reports arrived every hour. People claimed they had seen Saddam in villages, cities, deserts, and mountain regions. Special operations teams launched raid after raid. Night after night, helicopters landed outside isolated homes. Doors were breached. Buildings were searched. Underground tunnels were inspected. Every mission ended with the same result. Saddam Hussein wasn't there. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. The search continued without success. Frustration grew inside intelligence headquarters. Every failed operation consumed valuable time, manpower, and resources. But intelligence officers refused to give up. Instead of asking where Saddam was hiding, they began asking a different question: who was helping him hide? Investigators shifted their focus toward Saddam Hussein's closest relatives, trusted couriers, former bodyguards, and loyal supporters. Military investigators questioned former officials, tribal leaders, and captured members of Saddam's inner circle. Some cooperated. Many did not. Others deliberately provided false information, hoping to collect the reward or protect the former dictator. Each false lead forced another raid, another helicopter flight, another empty building, but with every failed lead, investigators eliminated another possibility. Slowly, a pattern began to emerge. The same names appeared again and again in intelligence reports: trusted family members, longtime associates, couriers who had remained loyal even after the Iraqi government collapsed. Rather than searching for Saddam directly, intelligence teams quietly began watching the people who might eventually lead them to him. Surveillance teams observed villages from hidden positions. Every vehicle entering and leaving certain areas was carefully documented. Every unusual meeting was recorded. Every movement was compared against satellite imagery and months of collected intelligence. Patience replaced speed. Observation replaced large military assaults. Then, after months of dead ends, investigators received information they could not ignore. The lead pointed toward the rural communities surrounding Tikrit, Saddam Hussein's hometown. For years, Saddam's family and tribal connections had dominated the region. If he was hiding anywhere, many believed it would be among people who had remained loyal to him for decades. Instead of launching another massive search operation, intelligence teams decided to watch first and strike only when they were absolutely certain. The investigation soon focused on the farming communities surrounding Tikrit. Months of surveillance suggested that a small group of trusted couriers continued moving quietly between isolated properties without attracting attention. To most people, these movements looked ordinary. To intelligence analysts, they were exactly the kind of pattern they had been waiting for. Rather than launching another large-scale assault, surveillance teams settled in. From concealed observation posts, they watched every road leading into the area. Every pickup truck was photographed. Every visitor was recorded. Every routine was documented. Days passed without action. But one location continued appearing in report after report: a quiet farmhouse near the town of Ad-Dawr. During the day, almost nothing happened there. At night, however, certain vehicles appeared briefly before disappearing again. The unusual activity caught the attention of intelligence officers. Satellite images were reviewed. Intercepted communications were analyzed. Human intelligence reports were compared. Each new piece of information strengthened the same conclusion: if Saddam Hussein was still alive, this was the most likely place to find him. Military commanders now faced a difficult decision. If the intelligence was wrong, another major raid would waste valuable resources and expose sensitive intelligence sources. If the intelligence was correct, waiting any longer might allow Saddam to escape once again. The decision was finally made. The mission would move forward. Responsibility for the operation was assigned to Task Force 121, an elite joint special operations unit experienced in hunting high-value targets. The mission would require speed, precision, and complete surprise. Operators studied aerial photographs of the compounds. Detailed maps covered every wall inside the planning rooms. Every building was analyzed. Every possible escape route was identified. Soldiers rehearsed the assault repeatedly. They practiced entering buildings from multiple directions. They rehearsed clearing rooms in seconds. Every operator knew exactly where to move before the helicopters even lifted off. There would be no second chance. If Saddam escaped again, months of intelligence work could disappear overnight. On December 13, 2003, the order was finally given. Operation Red Dawn had begun. As darkness settled across Iraq, helicopters lifted into the night carrying dozens of special operations soldiers toward their objective. Inside the aircraft, almost no one spoke. Red lights illuminated determined faces. Weapons were checked one final time. Radio communication was kept to an absolute minimum. Everyone understood the importance of surprise. Minutes later, the helicopters approached the target area. Rotor blades echoed across the quiet countryside. As soon as the aircraft touched the ground, assault teams moved into position. Within seconds, both compounds were completely surrounded. Escape routes were blocked. No one would enter. No one would leave. The first search team entered the farmhouse. Rooms were cleared one by one. Bedrooms, storage rooms, hallways, every corner was inspected. Nothing. The building appeared empty. Attention shifted toward the second compound. Another team repeated the search. Again, nothing. It looked like another failed raid. For a brief moment, disappointment began settling over the operation. Then something unexpected happened. One soldier noticed disturbed soil behind one of the buildings. It looked different from the surrounding ground. He stopped, kneeled beside it, and began brushing away the loose dirt. Almost immediately, his hand touched metal. Hidden beneath the soil was a carefully concealed steel cover. The discovery was reported to the rest of the team. Within moments, soldiers surrounded the area. Weapons were aimed toward the concealed opening. Everything became silent. No one knew what waited below. Slowly, the heavy cover was lifted. A narrow shaft disappeared into darkness. A flashlight beam cut through the opening. At first, nothing could be seen. Then, a face appeared. A tired, heavily bearded man looked upward, shielding his eyes from the sudden light. After nearly 9 months of searching, the world's most wanted fugitive had finally been found. Without firing a single shot, Saddam Hussein surrendered. The dictator who had once ruled Iraq from enormous presidential palaces had been discovered hiding inside a cramped underground shelter barely large enough for one person. Operation Red Dawn had achieved the objective that thousands of soldiers and intelligence officers had spent months pursuing. But before celebrating, there was one final question. Was this truly Saddam Hussein, or had history played one final trick? The soldiers immediately secured the area around the compound. Although intelligence strongly suggested they had captured Saddam Hussein, protocol required absolute confirmation before the mission could officially be declared a success. The prisoner was carefully searched and escorted away from the underground hideout. Within minutes, helicopters carried him to a secure coalition facility. There, military doctors and intelligence specialists were already waiting. A medical examination was conducted. Photographs were taken. Fingerprints were collected. His facial features, scars, and other identifying characteristics were compared against years of intelligence records. Every test pointed to the same conclusion. The man captured during Operation Red Dawn was, beyond any reasonable doubt, Saddam Hussein. After nearly 9 months of searching, the mission was over. The confirmation quickly moved through military headquarters. Secure communications carried the news from Iraq to Washington. Senior officials were informed. Military commanders reviewed the final reports. Only after every detail had been verified did preparations begin for a public announcement. On December 14, 2003, President George W. Bush addressed the nation from the White House. He announced that coalition forces had successfully captured Saddam Hussein during Operation Red Dawn. Within minutes, television stations interrupted regular programming. Breaking news banners appeared across the world. Newspapers rushed to print special editions. Radio stations repeated the announcement. For millions of people, it was one of the defining moments of the Iraq War. Around the world, reactions were mixed. Some viewed the capture as an important step toward stability in Iraq. Others questioned what would happen next and whether removing one man could truly end years of conflict. While Saddam Hussein was now in custody, the violence in Iraq did not suddenly disappear. Insurgent attacks continued. Political instability remained. The country still faced enormous challenges. In 2004, Iraq's interim government formally charged Saddam Hussein with crimes committed during his years in power. His trial attracted international attention. Courtrooms filled with journalists. Television networks carried updates across the globe. Supporters argued that justice was finally catching up with a dictator who had ruled Iraq through fear and repression. Critics raised questions about the legal process and the future of the country. Years after the dramatic raid near Ad-Dawr, historians continued debating the long-term impact of Operation Red Dawn. Some argued that the capture dealt a major psychological blow to loyalist forces. Others believed the conflict had already evolved beyond the influence of a single individual. What remained beyond debate was the extraordinary effort that led to the operation's success. Thousands of soldiers took part in the search. Countless intelligence analysts spent months examining reports, satellite images, intercepted communications, and witness statements. Special operations teams carried out raid after raid without knowing which mission would finally produce results. In the end, it wasn't overwhelming firepower that located Saddam Hussein. It was patience, careful observation, intelligence gathering, and the determination to keep searching when every previous lead had failed. Operation Red Dawn became one of the most successful manhunts in modern military history. It demonstrated how intelligence, teamwork, and persistence can achieve what brute force alone cannot. Yet it also revealed a deeper truth. Capturing one man, even one as powerful as Saddam Hussein, could never, by itself, rebuild a nation. Wars can remove governments. Military operations can eliminate threats. But lasting peace requires far more than victory on the battlefield. The story of Operation Red Dawn is not only the story of one dramatic night in December 2003. It is the story of months of relentless investigation. of thousands of people working toward a single objective, and of how history can sometimes turn on the smallest detail. A patch of disturbed earth, a hidden steel hatch, and one final discovery beneath the ground. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this documentary and want more true stories of military operations, intelligence missions, and historic events, subscribe to Operation Archive, because history isn't just something we read, it's something we uncover.